welcome to trèSci Weekly, episode 37. Today is Monday, October 23rd, 2017. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Ullman. Alongside, there's a snake in his boot, Tom Kaya.
What's up?
What's going on?
How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well. People will get the Woody joke in a little bit.
Yep. I always try to make it
related to
somehow related to the episode, so that when people go back and watch for the second time through, because I assume everybody watches twice.
Of course,
they get the reference again. Tom, how was your week?
Good, doing well. Some of the stories that I followed that we're not going to be chatting about. Let me see. I had them. They were all right there. Should I go to Twitter? Will that jog my memory?
Yeah, do it. Do your thing.
Have you anything else that you saw this week?
I want to give a quick shout out that this Saturday night is International Observe the Moon Night. So all you lovely folks out there, make sure that you take a moment of your time on Saturday night to just go out and check out that nice moon. You know, or we only got one natural satellite, and it's a beauty. And yeah, maybe I'll break out the telescope if it's clear. Kyle, would you be into that? Yeah. All right. Oh
yeah. Also, today is October 23rd. It's Avogadro's Day. 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd.
Nice.
I just remembered that.
What is Avogadro's number?
Chemistry.
Yeah, what is
That's
that?
That's the amount of atoms in 1 mole of a substance. So it's 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms in 1 mole.
It's a lot of atoms.
Yeah, because the atoms are so small, they need it like a scale in chemistry to make things easier.
Right.
So that's what they use.
Cool.
A mole. And then that's what today is. The other stories was the AI,
That's right.
The what's it called? Go.
AlphaGo.
The game. It kind of is like a checkerboard with tiles.
I've never played
it either.
Yeah, I don't know any of the rules. Don't know how it works.
But it's another example of artificial intelligence. It only played against itself, and in 3 days became the best AlphaGo player in the world. Could beat all the people. So kudos to those AI people.
Yeah, Tom, you were saying how long before we replace the president of the United States with an AI?
Because it's just better.
Yeah,
in 3 days it became the best. I mean,
so yeah, hopefully soon. Yeah, that's pretty much as far as I can think of the news in brief. There wasn't really too many other huge stories to talk about this week, which makes for a compelling, interesting episode here because we get to do a little bit of digging and we get to come up with some kind of a motif that we don't normally get to do, right?
Yeah.
So thank you guys all for watching, tuning in with us this lovely Monday evening. Once again, this is our weekly science news video podcast.
Yep.
Where we talk about trending science news topics from the week prior and go into detail, kind of describing what's going on in the world. And we hope that you will join us either in our live chat that we have going right now, or on various social media platforms such as facebook.com/trèSciWeekly, twitter.com/trèSciWeekly, and patreon.com/trèSciWeekly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get on into the first news story, really kind of one of the only big stories. On Tuesday, October 17th, the Heritage Foundation, which is kind of it's like a conservative think tank, Tom.
Okay.
Based in Washington, D.C. They hosted their annual President's Club meeting in Washington, D.C. This was where President Trump delivered his keynote on the big tax reform plan that he's got going on. But also, during the afternoon, EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt sat down for an interview with CEO of the Daily Signal, Robert Bluey. The entirety of the interview is about 45 minutes long, and we'll provide a link to that in the description of this video. I encourage all you guys to watch the whole thing because it's valuable insight as to what they're doing over there at EPA and like what Scott Pruitt wants to kind of achieve over there. But I would like to share a 5-minute clip where they get a question kind of comes from the audience about climate change, and there's just some interesting conjecture there that I think we can talk about, Tom. So without further ado, we'll put on the snazzy headphones here and take a listen to it. Oh man,
You're all tangled up?
I'm all tangled up here. Oh boy.
Cool.
That's you. That's me. Kyle, you let me know when to hit play over there, and we'll watch this brief clip together, and then we'll chat about it.
Okay, another question from our audience. Can you describe the shortcomings of the scientific evidence for climate change and the type of data that would be needed to convince you that climate change is happening?
Well, a couple things. Let me address something a little bit big picture, and then I'll get into this specific question. I have advisory boards at my agency. The CASAC is an advisory board, science advisory committee that advises me on air quality issues. I have BOSC, and I have the science advisory board. Scientists that make up these bodies, and there are dozens and dozens of these folks. Over the years, those individuals, as they've served in those capacities, guess what's also happened? They've received monies through grants, and sometimes substantial monies through grants. So I think what's most important at the agency is to have advisors, scientific advisors, that are objective, independent-minded, providing transparent recommendations to me as the administrator and to our office on decisions we're making on the efficacy of rules that we're passing to address environmental issues. And if we have individuals that are on those boards receiving money from the agency, sometimes going back years and years to the tune of literally tens of millions of dollars over time, that to me causes question on the independence and the veracity and the transparency of those recommendations that are coming our way. Next week, I want you to know something. I don't want to get ahead of myself too much, but next week we're going to fix that. Next week I'm going to issue a directive that addresses that, that's much like the sue and settle, to ensure the independence and transparency and objectivity with respect to the scientific advice that we're getting at the agency.
I'm not sure why you clap for that.
Now, on this issue, with respect to climate change, it's not a question about whether climate change occurs. It does. It's not a matter of whether man contributes to it. We do. The question is, how much do we contribute to it? How do we measure that with precision? But it's a little bit more difficult questions like, when we have individuals telling us today in 2017 that they know what the ideal global average surface temperature should be in the year 2100, I think there should be a debate around that. I think there ought to be discussion about that very issue. There are some, perhaps even in this very room, that believe that it poses an existential threat. You know, if it poses an existential threat, I want to know. If it's more important than ISIS in North Korea, I think we better know about it. So let's have a real meaningful discussion about that. The American people deserve, in my view, an objective, transparent, honest discussion about what we know and what we don't know with respect to CO2. It's never taken place. And that's the reason I've been proposing a red team, blue team exercise, where we would bring red team scientists in and blue team scientists in, and they would engage in a multi-month process asking of each other these very difficult questions to help inform the American public on these issues, to help build consensus toward this very important issue. Here's the last thing I would say about it. That's a very important exercise. And it's something that Steve Koonin actually published in the Wall Street Journal about 3 or 4 months ago. I think it was a well-written piece, and you ought to go read it. There's actually another piece called The Climate of Complete Certainty that Brett Stevens wrote in the New York Times about this very issue, where politicians have taken information that we know and stretched it so far on this issue that it strains credibility. And so we need to have a very honest, open discussion about this as a citizenry and as a country with respect to what we do. But here's the other thing. What are the tools in the toolbox? That matters. Remember what I said earlier, that the only authority I have is the authority that Congress gives me. And so we have to ask and answer the question, what does the Clean Air Act say to this issue as far as regulation of CO2? The last time the Clean Air Act was amended, anybody want to guess when that was? I know you study this every day. 1990, 27 years ago. And if you go back and read post the amendments, the Clean Air Act amendments from 1990, Congressman Dingell is not the most conservative member to ever have served in Congress. Congressman Dingell said to regulate greenhouse gas emissions under the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990 would be a glorious mess. The Clean Air Act was set up to address local and regional air pollutants, not the global phenomena of GHG and CO2. So we have to ask the question, one, what do we know? And let's inform ourselves about it. But we also have to ask, what can we do about it? What tools are in the toolbox? And I can't make that up. That's what the last administration did. And when they made it up, they got sued. And they got stays of enforcement, like the Clean Power Plan, which doesn't achieve any environmental outcomes and creates uncertainty in the marketplace. It was part of their war on coal, their war on fossil fuels. And I've got to ask you a question rhetorically. Where is it in the Clean Air Act that the EPA has authority to declare war on any sector of our economy? I don't see it. But that's what the last administration did, and it's ended under President Trump.
All right. You can cut it there, Kyle.
All right. Yeah.
All right. So, Tom, there's a lot there to unpack.
Yeah.
But I want to start kind of at the beginning, and when Scott Pruitt says that he wants to basically wipe the slate clean of people that are on his advisory board because he feels that there is some sort of conflict of interest happening there. I want to kind of get your take on that, and then we'll go a little bit further with it.
Okay, sure. So he's saying that we can't get an objective opinion from these people, an objective saying because they're receiving grant money from the EPA itself. So he's trying to insinuate that because they're getting money from the EPA, they might have some bias in continuing the story of regulation and things like that, I guess. But that seems kind of insane because the money that you're getting from the EPA is through grants for you to do research on the issues of the environment that you then put into legislation, right?
Right. It's because it's not like these people receive grant money and just pocket it. You know, like grant money exists as money to do something with, right? Like the EPA has money to issue out as grant money regardless of like who receives it.
Yeah.
And so the people that are receiving grant money are scientists that are, you know, leading research in areas that are kind of important to things like the EPA, right? Like monitoring air quality and monitoring water quality. And so wouldn't you
toxic chemicals, yeah.
Wouldn't you want people that are winning grants through the EPA to be on your science advisory board? Like, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's why you're giving them the grant money.
Yeah.
Because they're doing important research in the sciences in that area.
Yeah. So I don't really understand
why you would want to get rid of them, right?
Yeah.
And then who do you replace them with once you get rid of them?
That's the big question, right? Like, if not these people, these accredited scientists, then who, right? Like, who do you...
Yeah.
Who else do you get to be on the science advisory board? It doesn't really make any sense.
Be unbiased, yeah. I don't really know where you go to.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, we can certainly look into it a little bit more. I've actually brought up a couple websites here. Kyle, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the first one. This is on the EPA itself, their website, and it's their page basically on ethics for advisory committee members. And it says here, generally members of advisory committees and panels of the Science Advisory Board, or SAB, Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee, or CASAC, as Pruitt referred to before, and the Advisory Council on Clear Air Compliance Analysis Council, are employed as special government employees as defined under 18 U.S.C. 202A. On occasion, regular government employees serving in agencies other than EPA are also used as advisory committee panelists. As with the regular government employees, special government employees are required to abide by appropriate ethics regulations issued by the U.S. Office of Government Ethics. Among these requirements are the submission of a confidential financial disclosure form and completion of ethics training. And then if we scroll down a little bit more towards the bottom here, how EPA evaluates ethics information. When forming an advisory panel, one component of that process is to ensure candidates are free from conflicts of interest and/or an appearance of a loss of impartiality. This decision is made based on all relevant information, including a review of each candidate's confidential financial disclosure form, the responses to the supplemental ethics questions, public comments, and information gathered by SAB staff. Possible remedies to a conflict of interest include recusal from some part of the matter, divestiture from the disqualifying financial interest, application of exemptions in the ethics regulations, or an EPA-issued individual waiver. It goes on a little bit more there, but the point being is there are checks and balances already in place, right?
Like making sure that it is objective and that you're getting what you want.
Yeah, these scientists are put through the ringer already, I'm sure, having to go through all the necessary forms and whatnot to fill out to make sure that there aren't conflicts of interest, right? Like,
yeah, so if you get rid of the people that are receiving federal grant money to do scientific research from the EPA, then like we said, you go to somebody else.
Yeah.
What is their conflict of interest? They work for some sort of corporation or company that end goal is only to make money.
Right.
So that's why it has always seemed you would just go with these sort of scientists to be on your review board because they would be the least biased.
Yeah. And we can vet these scientists. Kyle, if you don't mind bringing up the next webpage here, we have
who they are.
The list, yeah. Like, this is all public. This isn't a secret advisory council, right?
Yeah.
These people are well respected in the community, and they're listed right here as members of the Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee, or CASAC. We can click on any one of them. Tom, who do you want to click on?
I guess we can go to the chair, the main person.
Yeah, sure. So if we click on the chair, there's,
credentials.
All
a
credentials.
Whole paragraph of credentials.
As well as where the research money comes from.
Yeah, what she's
That's
been doing research
all listed,
on, yeah.
right? Whether she is funded through EPA or DOE or whatever it is.
Agency, yeah.
So I just don't buy that there are conflicts of interest that we need to eradicate all these people on the scientific advisory board and replace them. Again, the big question is with who, right? With people from the private sector? Oh, because there's no conflicts of interest that exist there. Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's all very telling, Tom, that is the first response to a question asked about climate change.
I was just going to bring that up is because at first hand, it doesn't seem like it's all that bad because they asked him a question about climate change and he's been known actually to be a denier and this and that. But in his answer, he says that there is global warming. We are the cause of it. So at first hand, it seems like everything's A-okay. But then when he talks about getting rid of all this, which has nothing to even do with the question, it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me like there are lots of people with some sense of authority, right? They're advisors to, the EPA members that don't fall in line with the Trump administration and Scott Pruitt's sort of agenda
to deregulate.
And you can't just fire these people because they're termed in. I believe it's a 3-year term when you get on one of these committees, unless you can kind of swing it that there's a conflict of interest going on, and then you replace them and fill the spot with whoever you want.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just appears to me at face value of being a little shady.
Yeah.
And I don't like that because if these people are not on the committee, absolutely perfectly credentialed people to be discussing the science behind our air quality and our water quality and all these things, then we're going to get people of less caliber, and that's going to be detrimental to everybody, all of our health.
Yeah, less quality as well as having actual conflict of interest.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, I recommend that you guys watch the whole interview because there's obviously plenty more in there.
Yeah, and we also shared on our Twitter an article that has a lot of behind-the-scenes information about this as well. That is a good read about what is going on within the EPA itself.
What do you make of the idea of having a red team versus blue team scientific debate on the climate change matter?
But he just said in his own interview that it's man-made and we're the cause of it. But you need a team of scientists against another team of scientists to say sort of how much we are the cause, I guess he's trying to say. But like we mentioned before when we were talking to each other, it's not that it's one side against another side in these issues. It's that it's a whole complicated system that needs continued study for many years. You really won't be able to get anything out of one team going against another team because it's like all ongoing active research that we're concerned about.
Yeah.
It's not really a yes or no answer to climate change.
No, and I don't...
Like he already said, we recognize there's global warming and we are the cause for a contribution to that warming.
Yeah.
So then what are you really getting out of this activity? I don't really...
Yeah, I mean, I think a debate can and does exist about the specifics of like what goes into building climate models, for example.
That, yeah.
Those already exist, and you know, if we had access to you know, some of these internal scientific meetings that...
Yeah, not everybody just agrees with each other and goes, yo, you're right.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, you're right.
Yeah,
people that's not the way it works.
People get real fired up at these
you need to defend your positions, and that's the way science in itself works.
Yeah.
We don't need another activity of a team versus a team.
Yeah, but I think what this proposition is of a red team versus blue team, first of all, you're not going to be able to find a full team of people who are going to argue the case against climate change. I just don't think that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And second of all, like we couldn't put that on TV for people to watch without it getting totally politicized in one direction and the other direction.
Because that would be the goal.
Yeah, that would be the end goal tremendously. Yeah. So that's just not a reasonable thing to do. I don't think, you know, like there has to be some sort of behind closed doors where scientists can kind of yell science jargon at one another until they can
figure out exactly what's going on.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there you have it. There's more, of course, to this story than meets the eye, and we're all at stake here, Tom. Like, pollution is a big deal. Going a little bit further with it, this happens to coincide with a report from The Lancet, which is kind of an environmental scientific journal. So according to the Lancet Commission on Pollution and Health, which was published on October 19th, 2017, quote, pollution is the largest environmental cause of disease and premature death in the world today. Diseases caused by pollution were responsible for an estimated 9 million premature deaths in 2015, 16% of all deaths worldwide, 3 times more than deaths from AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria combined, and 15 times more than from all wars and other forms of violence. In the most severely affected countries, pollution-related disease is responsible for more than 1 death in 4.
So when they're talking about the severely affected countries, when you look at like China and India, and you look at their air quality and pollution and what's going on over there, like how does that not scare you? Like when you see what's happening with unregulation there, it's almost unlivable to walk outside without a mask. Like that's pretty insane.
The smog makes it so that you can't see, you know, a mile in front of you. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. This report goes on to say, quote, the good news is that much pollution can be eliminated, and pollution prevention can be highly cost-effective. High-income and some middle-income countries have enacted legislation and issued regulations mandating clean air and clean water, established chemical safety policies, and curb their most flagrant forms of pollution. Their air and water are now cleaner, the blood lead concentrations of their children have decreased by more than 90%, their rivers no longer catch fire, their worst hazardous waste sites have been remediated, and many of their cities are less polluted and more livable. Health has improved, and people in these countries are living longer. High-income countries have achieved this progress while increasing gross domestic product by nearly 250%.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important aspects, is that while you're fighting pollution, there's still the way to move forward and grow your economy at the same time.
Yeah.
That it's not has to be all deregulation.
Absolutely. The challenge for high-income nations today is to further reduce pollution, decarbonize their economies, and reduce the resources used in achieving prosperity. The claim that pollution controls stifles economic growth and that poor countries must pass through a phase of pollution and disease on the road to prosperity has repeatedly been proven to be untrue.
Yeah, that was one of the main points I was trying to make.
Pollution mitigation and prevention can yield large net gains for both human health and the economy. Thus, air quality improvements in the high-income countries have not only reduced deaths from cardiovascular and respiratory disease, but have also yielded substantial economic gains. In the USA, an estimated $30 in benefits has been returned to the economy for every dollar invested in air pollution control since 1970, which is an aggregate benefit of $1.5 trillion against an investment of $65 billion. Similarly, the removal of lead from gasoline has returned an estimated $200 billion to the U.S. economy each year since 1980, an aggregate benefit to date of over $6 trillion through the increased cognitive function and enhanced economic productivity of generations of children exposed since birth to only low amounts of lead. End quote. So you see that, Tom? We got trillions of dollars with just low amounts of lead in the blood. Imagine if we could get rid of all the lead.
That would be amazing.
That would be fantastic. So, pollution's bad right now. Real bad.
Yeah, and what's interesting, a lot of people who were against climate change, almost every person says that they also, regardless of what they think about climate change, is that pollution is the real issue. I've heard that from a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Where that they disagree with how much it's actually warming, how much effect is being caused by the warming, but everybody can agree that the pollution part is horrible and bad, and everybody sort of agrees on that. So I'm not sure where this administration goes with wanting to deregulate and allow this to sort of just run rampant.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure where the support is coming for this.
Right. Let's not forget that the EPA was proposed to have budget cuts of 30-something%
by the same administration. Yeah,
30-something%, Tom. That's outrageous.
Yeah,
you know, and they want to do more. Like they're declaring they're going to do more than the last administration did. But how are you going to do that with that much chunk of your fiscal?
Yeah.
You know. Just totally eradicated. I don't know how that's going to happen. It's not going to.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So, pollution is obviously worse of a problem worldwide than it is
in the U.S.
here at home, right? Yeah. We talk about places like China, places like India. They're struggling quite a bit with controlling pollution because they don't have an EPA like we do. You know, our EPA may be undergoing a big kind of crisis and change happening to it right now, but at least we still have one.
Yeah,
and
that's really important that we do have one.
Right. Many of the regulatory rules that have been, you know, put in place by the EPA have helped really protect us in you know, recent years. But that's not to say that our pollution problems don't exist.
That we have it under control, yeah.
Yeah.
And you constantly need to be monitoring it. Because, as we were talking before, as you do more research and you realize, oh, this substance is a carcinogen, and now this molecule is a carcinogen and could be cancerous, that it's an ongoing struggle to really be on top of all the toxic substances that are out there and making sure they're out of our air and our water.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's an ongoing thing.
Definitely. And so I thought I would tie this whole thing into how it kind of hits home for us, at least here on Long Island. This was kind of brought up by Kayla Riley. She tagged us in a News 12 special that they're airing, at least they were airing last week, called What's in the Water.
Yeah, I really like that that part of the News 12 story.
Yeah.
I was following it.
So, yeah, so let's get into that a little bit more.
So, yeah, right before we get into it, though, I want to mention that it's really easy to think about pollution when we look at India and China because you can sort of see the effects of it happening. And what I want to caution when we talk about this is that you might not be aware of any misdoings or wrongdoings by the EPA by leaving out a certain chemical or toxin. You won't be able to see it in the air or the water, but if it becomes a substance that becomes a part of our water table that, you know, they didn't label toxic and they didn't follow, you're not going to see it. You know, it's not like an obvious thing like, oh, our water's polluted, we need to not drink it because it looks brown. You know, these are some dangerous chemicals, and there's production all across Long Island, and you wouldn't even know if those toxic chemicals were going into your water.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's why I think it's tough, because it's not like China or India where you can just see the problem of pollution happening right in front of you, and it's really behind the scenes of laws and regulations about these toxic chemicals.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that really protects you from them.
Yeah, we're going to bring up 3 chemicals in particular in just a moment that are used as used for like non-stick pans,
and stuff that are found in our water.
Yeah. So, you know, these aren't just, you know, things that are dirty.
Yeah,
this
like a factory.
Right. This isn't an oil spill that we're concerned with. It's something a little bit more sinister because you can't see it. Yeah, so we'll get into it. What's in the Water has been airing on News 12. I encourage you guys to go kind of check that out. The series helps educate Long Islanders on where their local drinking water comes from, with an emphasis on efforts to control contamination. And I thought it's kind of funny when they do the first segment of it, they just are interviewing a bunch of random people on the street, and they're like, yeah, do you know where Long Island's water comes from? And everyone's like, no, I have no idea.
It's like, you didn't take earth science in school?
So just to recap, Tom, I thought we could also just spell it out there where Long Island's drinking water supply comes from. Kyle, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the image here, the LI Aquifer image here. Our water supply comes entirely from underground.
Yeah.
So Tom, if you wouldn't mind just explaining a little bit about how aquifers work.
Yeah, so what an aquifer is it's soil of varying size particles that has pore spaces, open spaces that allows something to go in between it.
Mm-hmm.
And water, as we know, is a liquid, and it can sort of go in between all these little crevices. And it turns out there's actually many thousands of tons of water in between these little pore spaces underground underneath Long Island. So we just pump it up right out of the aquifers, and that's what our water comes from.
Right. And now this isn't like ocean water or seawater.
No,
right?
yeah.
This is
it's from rainwater that's permeated through the ground, and it's in the soil.
Cool. And so for the most part,
we have enough water within our own aquifers where we wouldn't have a problem getting water in the foreseeable future.
Right.
That is, if we don't contaminate it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's the big if there. Yeah, and so for the most part, this water is naturally filtered, and
yeah, it sort of just gets filtered naturally through the ground, and it's a really great way for us to get quality water.
Awesome. So yeah, so we have, you know, different names for the different aquifers underneath Long Island: the McAfee Aquifer, the Lloyd Aquifer, and then isn't there one other?
Yeah, there's the what's the name of the other one? The McAfee, the Lloyd. I forget. But there's another one.
Yeah. Anyway, so if we have the freedom to just take from this water supply, the key thing is to not poison the well, right?
Yeah, because it's such a large system where if it does get contaminated, there's no real way to just filter it out nicely. It's sort of like all a big system. So
why is News 12 doing a special on what's in the water? Well, interest in the topic has been prompted by a report back in January that a probable carcinogen known as 1,4-dioxane was found with the highest ever detected concentration in a well within the Hicksville Water District. So, as we mentioned, 1,4-dioxane used for making
non-stick pans
or stain-resistant carpet, And this is a chemical that now has been studied and has links to, I believe, things like kidney cancer.
Yeah.
And we're finding, concentrations of it in our drinking water. So obviously that well is no longer in service, that particular one, but this is now scaring people because...
And they want to... what else could be in our water? What's really going on?
So what else could be in our water? Well, in addition, perfluorinated compounds such as perfluorooctanoic acid, or PFOA for short, and perfluorooctanosulfonic acid, perfluorooctane sulfonic acid.
Yep.
That's a tough one. PFOS for short, have been detected at Gabreski Airport in Westhampton Beach and the Suffolk Fire Academy in Yaphank. These sites have been added to a long list of Superfund sites that have been identified by either the EPA or the New York Department of Environmental Conservation. Newsday provides a map that shows all the current Superfund sites on Long Island, last updated in March 2017. And we'll bring up an image of that as well.
So we can look up all the sites where they're having to do cleanup.
Yeah. I don't know why they're called Superfund sites.
Yeah, I don't know either.
That's kind of a weird name for them. But these are all areas where there have been trace amounts of contaminants or are currently trace amounts of contaminants across Long Island. And the ones in red here are defined as Superfund sites by EPA, or federally kind of recognized. Yep. And then the ones in yellow are statewide, right? New York Department of Environmental Conservation. So, Tom, looking at this map...
It's pretty insane.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
All of those sites...
And those are already cleanup sites.
Right.
Because there's already been an issue.
These are the ones that we know about, right?
Yeah.
Lord only knows what we don't know about.
That is pretty insane that we know of 256 sites that have contamination.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
And, if there's chemicals spilling into the ground, they're seeping through...
Yeah, they're going through the soil into the aquifer.
Yeah. Now, hopefully, along the way, some of them are getting filtered out, but...
By, the current filtration system that Suffolk County Water Authority has, but that's a lot of different sites, a lot of different toxic chemicals to be able to account for and to get rid of.
Right. And so, wouldn't it be a shame then, Tom, to get rid of people... on the EPA Science Advisory Board,
who got grants from the federal government, from tax money, to do the research that can tell you which substances and toxins are toxic for you and are carcinogens. And we already have 256 sites on Long Island alone.
Yeah.
What are we going to do without?
What do we stand to gain from that?
Right?
I don't know.
It's pretty wild.
Now, it's not like we're doing nothing about this, right? There are initiatives to clean these sites up.
Yeah, I never knew there was so much production of chemicals on Long Island because nobody ever really talks about it.
Right.
But there's sites all across the island where they produce chemicals and all kinds of different things.
Plenty of them. In order to better control the aforementioned contaminants, New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo has assembled a 12-person drinking water quality council who met for the first time on October 2nd at Stony Brook University's Wang Center.
I really like the Wang Center.
Yeah, really good. Jasmine's?
A little pricey, but...
You're right, a little pricey. But, hey man, it's a nice serene building. A lot of good stuff going on in there. The council hopes to establish maximum contaminant levels, or MCLs, for 1,4-dioxane, PFOA, and PFOS, since at present there is no federal jurisdiction issued by the EPA, right? So basically what that means is EPA has not mandated a concentration level or like a threshold that
you have to be below.
Right. According to technical fact sheets about the contaminants listed on EPA's webpage, however, quote, EPA also established a lifetime health advisory of 0.2 milligrams per liter for 1,4-dioxane in drinking water and is issuing a lifetime drinking water health advisory for PFOA of 0.07 micrograms per liter. based on a reference dose derived from a developmental toxicity study in mice, end quote. So EPA is also looking into these contaminants. Their research kind of, I guess, is guiding them to what that level of
contamination,
of kind of like influence to us would we can stand versus what we can't. And but the PFOA one, that's pretty reasonable, I would imagine. Like 0.07 micrograms per liter. That's 1 part in.
Yeah, that's kind of high, actually. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. But then, for 1,4-dioxane, 0.2 milligrams. That's really high. Yeah. That's like. Yeah. I'm sure if you. Drank.
If you drank that, you would not be feeling well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it looks like New York State is kind of looking into the matter further in order to regulate it statewide so that, we don't have to rely
wait for the EPA.
Right. We don't have to rely on the EPA for that. In addition to these contaminants, nitrogen pollution plays a critical role to Long Island. Algae blooms grow from heightened concentrations of nitrogen in the bays and harbors, resulting in harmful, what they call brown tides, or a variety of other murky waters that cause serious damage to the local ecosystems. And we have an image of a brown tide that credit goes to Charlie Flagg and Newsday.com for this one.
A drone pic, you think?
Yeah, probably a drone pic, or maybe even from small aircraft. Yeah.
But you can clearly see it's all brown and murky.
Yeah, so this is from algae that grows. This is actually a picture of it receding, so this is good news.
That it's going away.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was in Bellport Bay Harbor. So yeah, this is bad news. Nitrogen pollution comes from sewage runoff as well as lawn care fertilizer treatments. NYDEC is investigating ways to reduce nitrogen concentration via LINAP, which is the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan. Right, so there are things in place that hopefully we'll be able to solve these issues.
Yeah, but nitrogen is a huge problem, and I was just reading that in Suffolk County that 80% of the sewers are cesspools, which is leading to more of the problem. And then, as well as fertilizers get used all over Long Island for yards and farms and things. So
yeah,
it's tough to fight the nitrogen pollution.
Yeah. Just visiting the chat real quick. James Farrell corrects us and says that the Upper Glacial is the third aquifer under Long Island. Thank you for that. That was silly for us to not remember. Medford looking all right. That's true. I think a big reason why that part of the map is free from those Superfund sites is there's a lot of Pine Barrens regions there.
Pine Barrens,
and the Pine Barrens are specifically protected for
that
reason. For that reason.
For the purpose of us to have drinkable water.
Yeah. Nancy Cleta says, "You're right, no one talks about who and where chemicals are being produced. Forget about your perfect green lawns. Use none or less fertilizers." I agree. I think there's way too much of an emphasis on lawn fertilizer here on Long Island. Like, who cares, really? Yeah. So, Tom, any closing thoughts on this whole pollution fiasco, EPA kind of swindling going on over there? What do you think?
I would recommend reading the article that I shared on Twitter. And when you really hear about the behind the scenes, what's going on at the EPA, it's not just that interview we saw with Scott Pruitt and just what he's saying, that behind the scenes there's a lot of stuff going on with people who were working there for a long time aren't anymore. They're trying to deregulate a lot, and it's kind of scary, especially when we look at our own drinking water this close to home, how much of a problem this really is.
Yeah.
And then to see people trying to deregulate it and things, it seems insane, honestly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Crazy. Well, number 2 is kind of a sharp pivot away from the pollution conversation.
Yeah, but, we had to look into it,
Oh, yeah, definitely. Number 2, as far as kind of like a more entertainment-focused kind kind of news story here.
Take a walk on Mars.
Yeah, NASA's launched what they're calling Access Mars Web VR, a virtual walk on Mars. They put up a little trailer for it, so I thought this would be fun for us to watch together. And then, Tom, we kind of messed around with it a little bit before the show, so I thought we could kind of offer our thoughts on that.
Sounds good.
But let's watch the video first so that everybody knows what we're talking about. And this video comes by way of NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Kyle, let me know when to hit play there.
The Curiosity rover landed on Mars on August 5th, 2012. Since then, it's sent over 200,000 images back to Earth. NASA engineers have transformed these photographs into a 3D model that our scientists use to study the surface of Mars. We wanted to share this tool with everyone, so we collaborated with Google to create an immersive web experience called Access Mars.
Hi, I'm Katie. Welcome to Mars.
Access Mars features some of the most important locations from the mission, key points of interest, and narration from JPL scientist Katie Stack-Morgan.
It lives on the web, so you don't need to install anything to check it out. You can view it on a computer, phone, or a VR device.
And because Curiosity is still on Mars, we will continue to update the data so you can see where the rover is right now. Our scientists are virtually exploring Mars with this technology, and now you can too.
Okay.
Pretty sweet.
So, like I said, we messed around with it a little bit.
Did you try it on your phone at all? I'm curious.
I did not.
Okay.
I just used it on my laptop here. I still have it up. What did you think about it, Tom?
It seems like a really cool idea, right? To be able to walk through a VR world of Mars.
Yeah.
It seems like a really cool way to interact with it. But when we were actually on it, a lot of times it's not as clear as you would like it to be. It's kind of pixelated in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
So you don't really get the experience I think they're wanting you to get out of it.
Yeah. It's a little bare bones.
Yeah, we were mentioning that the next time we have a Mars rover, that it'll have better technology where we will be able to have sort of an HD seamless VR.
Yeah.
Look at it when it has like a 360 camera and everything on it.
Yeah, right. I mean, the hope would be that, they put a 360-degree camera
on the next one,
on the next one to be able to really render virtual reality space.
So it's like you can look at the geology of Mars and not pixels.
Right,
in
because
a lot of areas.
Yeah, from what they're doing with this one is they're just stitching together
pictures,
all the pictures, right? And that, it's a
good
neat
in
concept.
some areas, yeah, but in some areas it really doesn't
Yeah.
give you the picture you need.
Yeah, and like the soil looks totally warped and stretched and like...
Because it's just a picture, yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate and applaud the effort. I wish there was more kind of to interact with. There are like these little hubs.
Yeah, they tell you where you are.
And yeah, they're narrated. Cool. They give you like a nice kind of blurb about, what kind of terrain you're looking at. But yeah, I just wish there was more,
Yeah.
And I look forward to when we actually have virtual reality headsets are kind of more commonplace,
yeah.
And you just put on your virtual reality headset and you go to Mars. That would be my dream. I wish I had a virtual reality headset so that I could try this out with it.
Yeah, it might be a lot cooler with it. I'm
Kyle,
not sure.
I'm gonna need you to go on Craigslist. I need you to find a cheap HTC Vive, maybe, or an Oculus Rift or something like that. All right.
Make that.
Nice. What's that?
Low ball.
Yeah, really low ball. Really stick it to them. But yeah, if you're interested, go check it out. It's free. So
it's still pretty cool, yeah. And you don't have to download anything because it's right on the website.
Yeah, it just runs. But yeah, with that, that's all I have to share with you. Tom, you said you had a Tom's Corner this week.
Yeah, I had a little interesting thing for us to chat about. I was recently watching every Yankee game because I was kind of amazed they were in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I was stoked. And what ended up happening with them was, so they changed the way the playoffs are in baseball now, where it's 2 home games for the higher seeded team, then 3 road games, and then the last 2 games are at home.
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up happening, the Astros were the higher seeded team over the Yankees. They won their first 2 games at home. Then the Yankees won their 3 games at home. And then the Astros closed out and won their 2 games at home, causing the Yankees to lose the series.
Right.
And the same thing happened against the Indians. They could only win at home, not on the road. And it reminded me way back when in 7th grade, I actually did a science fair project on, is there home field advantage in sports? ? That was my...
that was your hypothesis?
That was my hypothesis.
Nice.
To answer this question. And I never saw it like so plainly in your face, like how important home field advantage was. The Yankees could not win a game on the road.
No.
And they just won all their games at home.
Did they win one, though?
I think they might have won one game
Yeah.
in Cleveland. That was the only game they won on the road.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you have it.
So when you talk about home field advantage, you can go over 1,000,001 different things. But specifically in baseball, what's different is the stadium is actually different. You know?
That's
That's
true.
the only sport where when you're playing at home, that the pitch has different dimensions than it does in other places.
Right.
So baseball has the most extreme advantage of, well, not advantage, but the most extreme disparity between being on the road or at home.
Right.
So that's an actual physical difference for them being at home.
Yeah.
And then they interviewed a lot of the Astros players, and they talked about the noise at Yankee Stadium. And then I was reading a whole article on how the crowd interacts with players at different stadiums. So if you've ever watched a baseball game, basketball, and or played a basketball video game, you know when you're shooting a free throw, all the fans are waving around those wiggly things, so you miss your free throw and they're yelling at you and they're screaming.
Right.
Or if you're a field goal kicker, everyone's yelling and things like that. So there's obvious impact from the crowd, as well as specifically in baseball for being in the stadium that you're at.
Yeah.
And then I was reading, you can go into the whole idea of like the psychology of just being at home as opposed to traveling. You might be jet lagged if you got to go all the way to the West Coast.
Circadian rhythm might be thrown off.
There's all kinds of different things that you could take into account when you talk about home field advantage. But for this case in particular, the thing that I found most interesting reading about home field advantage was they brought up an example of a no-hit game thrown by a pitcher. And this was, I forget who wrote the science article about it, but they were saying that regardless of if you were home or away, that the only thing in baseball that they said transcends the home field advantage is if a pitcher throws a no-hitter, because it's such an outlier to the statistics of an advantage that if you were able to throw a no-hit game, that overcomes any of those type of barriers, and that your performance alone is responsible for the outcome as opposed to any other home field advantages because of it's such a statistical outlier.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was kind of really, it got me really thinking. I was like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But so in general, yes, home field advantage is actually a huge deal in major sports.
Yeah.
You know, I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah.
But it's such a weird, interesting take on baseball and home field advantage.
Yeah. God, I love baseball.
Right?
Yeah.
Baseball is a weird sport.
It's an awesome sport.
It's all numbers.
Yeah. It's just the law of averages over and over again. I've realized that not too long ago too, about how every stadium kind of has its own like weird little quirks to it.
Yeah, and
that's so cool. Like,
and teams actually try to, you know, get hitters that are good at that.
Yeah.
Like if you have a shallow right field, that you get
Short
people
porch,
who are
dude.
good, hitting away. Like Fenway, or at the Astros, they have that really short wall, kind of like the Green Monster at Fenway.
Right.
Really similar.
Yeah. The Trop, dude.
Yeah.
If you hit the rafters in Tropicana Field, sometimes it's a home run.
Yeah, sometimes it's a
you're
foul
just
ball,
out.
or you're out.
Yeah, it's like, what is going on down there?
Yeah, so then I was just trying to think in my head, like, what really was the cause of the Yankees not doing well at home or away? And then I was looking at Tanaka, one of their pitchers. He's the guy from Japan, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And his stats at home are like almost an all-star pitcher, and then when he's on the road, he's a schmuck. Like his runs are totally out there. But for him, I think it kind of makes sense because he's already from a different country, from very far away. So I think the regularity of being at home, he doesn't even speak the language all that much.
Yeah.
I could see how being at home is a huge factor for him.
Yeah.
So his games, when they had him pitch, he was at home, which was great, and he won. And it was cool. So I thought they were going to dodge the bullet because he didn't have to pitch on the road.
Right.
But they still couldn't win.
They still messed it up.
You know?
Not enough money, I think.
The Yankees.
Yeah, the Yankees need more money, probably.
But I've never seen it where I was just like, wow, they can't win on the road.
Yeah.
They just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're young.
It
They'll
happens.
get there.
Yeah.
I was telling Dan, actually, that, 2010 or 2011 Yankees would get knocked out in the championship or divisional round or whatever it was, and I was like, these bums, they stink.
Right? Come on.
Yeah, but this team, of like rookies gets knocked out in the championship round. I'm like, all right,
that was good. Yeah,
that was good. Yeah, we'll get there next year. All right. Yeah, I like baseball. Didn't get to watch enough baseball this summer.
Yeah, I think the World Series starts tonight, I believe, and I was telling you before, we were looking at the weather for the opening pitch, and it's expected to be the hottest, or one of the hottest World Series games ever played.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be like 90 or 95 at pitch time or something.
That's crazy.
At first pitch.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see if the weather has an effect. Because that actually affects a lot in baseball with how far the ball travels and different
definitely
moisture content and temperature.
Yeah.
So that's another factor for their home field advantage there in Los Angeles.
Yeah. But Houston is no stranger to hot weather either.
Yeah, they're in Texas, so they're both fine with hot weather.
It's not like Boston's playing, God forbid.
It is pretty funny though. Playoff the World Series in October and it's 90-some degrees.
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane. Cold snap coming though.
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, I think that's about it for this episode.
I think that wraps it up for us. This was good. This was good stuff. We will catch you guys all next week.
Yeah, don't forget to tag us and things if you see any nice science stuff you want to share with us.
Yep.
And check out our stuff on Facebook and Twitter. I shared a cool article about the first story we were talking about with Scott Pruitt that has a really nice read. It's hard to get all the ins and outs and points across when we're just talking live because there's a lot of issues. So if you want another read, go for it there. But other than that, I think we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet.
See you, everybody.
Okay, we love you. Bye.